Hello and welcome to an ACCP interview. My name is Oliver Grundmann and I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Otito Iwuchukwu. Dr. Iwuchukwu, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. So as Dr. Grundmann said, my name is Otito Iwuchukwu, and right now I am an assistant professor in the Division of Pharmaceutical Sciences at Fellow Dickinson University School of Pharmacy in Madison, New Jersey.
Wonderful. So with your current position, what is your current area of research? What kind of got you into the field of clinical pharmacology?
Okay, so even though I said I'm an assistant professor, I forgot to mention that I'm also a pharmacist. I'm a practicing pharmacist, and right now I have a dual role. I serve as an investigational trial research pharmacist on call at one of the largest transplant centers in New Jersey. And I started my role in clinical pharmacology, I think because I'm primarily a pharmacist, and then I went to school, got my PhD in drug metabolism, pharmacokinetics, with a minor in medicinal chemistry. And with that, after school, I decided, okay, I want to get my postdoctoral studies. And my postdoctoral studies were done in pharmacogenomics, which is interesting because when I was in school, and I started the science, so the theoretical part of pharmacogenomics, and it was like a light bulb went out that this might be the science that is responsible for some of the, drug reactions or adverse reactions that we used to term idiosyncratic back in the day. So I took a huge interest in this because I have a personal experience with the sulfonamides. I developed Steven Johnson's, and then it was the same thing that was said, we don't know what caused this. So learning about the HLA loci and all of that got me deeply interested in pharmacogenomics. And I think because I had a personal side to it, it was driven also by passion of I need to know more about this science. So after my PhD, then I went to get my postdoctoral fellowship in clinical pharmacology at Vanderbilt University in pharmacogenomics, right, in the field of pharmacogenomics. And from there, literally it took off. So I think my combination of drug metabolism in graduate school and pharmacogenomics just basically segued into what I do now, because right now I'm trying to look at outcomes for renal transplant subjects, right, on tacrolimus and other CYP3A4 inducer inhibitor drugs a few years post-transplant. So that's what I'm currently working on now.
Wow, that certainly covers a very broad range of, so you really build on your pharmacy education, both from the preclinical stages, because you mentioned also medicinal chemistry,
yes.
All the way to the clinical stages. Yes. So it's really the translational aspect that you really apply now to caring for patients, which is especially the post-transplant patients that often require a lot of care, a lot of multi-therapy, multimodal, very individualized therapy in many cases. So that's very impressive, certainly. And I think it's one of these individual career paths that maybe did you predict that you would end up in this position when you started off studying pharmacy?
No, I did not. And I think I've answered like the next phase of the question of why did I choose the area. I chose it because it came from personal experience. And I think that as healthcare professionals, as people who work in this space, when you have a story to tell, or you have a story about the area that you're studying, it's kind of different for you. You study it with more of a passion, I would say, right? You want to be able to make that difference, even if it's on a microscopic level, because this could have been me, or this was me, back then, and now I'm contributing to the science or the research that is helping move this area forward.
Yeah, and obviously you're making an impact for patients directly, and that is an important contribution. So, because this is specifically for STEP members of ACCP, what advice would you now, in retrospect, looking back at where you're at now and how you got there through some unbeknownst, crossways on the paths you encountered. What advice would you give to students and trainees and early stage professionals that are just either still in pharmacy school or just about to enter the field of clinical pharmacology?
Okay, this might sound like a cliche, but it really is not, because, I was telling someone just yesterday that the personality test, and I've taken quite a few of them, call me an introvert. So the big meetings are not for me. In graduate school, I used to attend AAPS, which is the American Association of Pharmaceutical Scientists. I dropped out of that meeting because it really was too large. And so while I was in postdoctoral studies, I learned about the clinical pharmacology societies. There are two of them. There's ACCP and then there's this one, ACCP. And these meetings were manageable for me. They were smaller. I could reach out to people one-on-one. And that's where I'm going to come and say, you should reach out to people. Take advantage of your network. I remember two pivotal moments that happened, and both of them happened at very small meetings. So I attended the PGRN. PGRN is the Pharmacogenomics Research Network, a meeting of scientists. And I remember talking to Dr. Julie Johnson. The funny thing is she may not remember me, but that was a pivotal moment for me because she was just talking to me as a young, postdoctoral scientist, and she was asking me what I wanted to do. I said, I've laid out this dual career track pathway that I think I might be interested in. I would like to go either the regulatory way or the academic way. So I had kind of done that, needs analysis based on my personality type. Which areas do I think I might fit in best, right? Because you also want your workspace or the area of the career that you want to tie in with the type of person that you think you are. And she asked me a very key question. She said, do you even know what they do at the FDA? And I said, no. And so she said that she typically advises her students and people that work under her to go and do like a work study, right? So you want to go into that environment, you want to contribute, you want to see what's going on there and see if it's something that works for you. And I said, I don't really know anybody at the FDA. She said, I have my former students there. I'll reach out to them. And she did. I followed up with her. She did. And I ended up spending 8 weeks in the Office of Clinical Pharmacology. Made so many friends that I still, I'm in touch with today. But I think that 8 weeks kind of clarified it for me that I may not want to begin at the FDA for my initial career path. And so I focus now solely on academia, and that's kind of what's basically led me this way. Would I go back to the FDA? Probably. I don't know. A career is like a long-term, lifelong thing because I'm a clinical pharmacologist by training. So obviously I could fit into that field if I wanted to go back. But I think just having that experiential part of it really helps solidify things for me. Now, it may be that everyone may not have that opportunity, but I think in these days of, social networking and having all of this virtual meeting apps now freely available, it's something you can reach out to someone and say, can I, spend an hour with you? Can I reach out to you 30 minutes, spend time, have an interview, like a behavioral interview with the person to describe the role, to describe what they really do. So to describe the role, to describe what they really do, because I think that's pivotal, because many times in grad school or, postdoctoral studies, we have this idea, right, of what people do. And I think it's with talking to them and having that conversation that you get to find out if this is something you may even want to go into. So I keep saying this, and that brings me to the point that I think that sometimes is missing in the graduate school experience, in that you have to do a personality inventory as a graduate student, right? All of us are in this field, and many times I say people who go into graduate school, they're typically more self-driven, right, than the average person out there. Otherwise, you wouldn't spend 6 years laboring over, one topic, right? So typically more self-driven, but I think with all of this, it's like a type A personality. You get done and then you jump to the next. And I think it's we need to take time to, step back and say, what type of person am I? Do I work best in teams? Do I work best alone? And working alone doesn't mean you can't collaborate with people. It just means that you get your best when you're, maybe in an environment by yourself, so you can give more, and then you can then get your feedback right from your team members. So so back to what the question was. 2 key things: reach out to people, use your network, take a personality inventory, find out the type of person you're in, what the type of person you are, what type of roles you think you may fit into best, and then look for people in those roles and try to find out from them, right, what they do, and get feedback from them regarding your intentions and see where that takes you.
It's actually very interesting, because I never thought about taking a personality inventory. Not that I haven't taken them, but specifically suited to my potential career needs and future. I never considered that. That's a very interesting approach, and maybe something to think about in graduate schools. So that's something that I think quite a few of our listeners and viewers might actually take to heart, and maybe even some graduate school programs should take that to heart.
Yeah, actually, I think at the postdoctoral level, the NIH is doing quite a bit in this space, because now there's this program called Broadening Experiences in Postdoctoral Training, in Scientific Training, BEST, right? So this is something where they're saying, as scientists, just like I said, most of us are self-driven, we do this thing, but then we lack maybe social skills. We lack the skills for, presenting your ideas in a very succinct, clarifying manner that the average person on the streets can understand what you're saying. Key things that are useful, skills that are useful for us in the society that we basically discount when we're going through graduate education. So the NIH is doing quite a bit of this, but that's at the postdoctoral level. And I think that maybe graduate schools need to get into that space too, of letting graduate students know, yes, you're going to be a PhD holder, but at the same time, you need all of these other skills, right, to balance out that driven, motivational side that maybe can just be one track minded.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on a very, very important soft skill set. Communications, communicating to other stakeholders, that is very important and becomes more important to be successful in your career. Very good points. So talking about your career, leading up to where you are at now, what is kind of the moment or moments, or looking back, what are you kind of most proud of your accomplishments, of what you're doing, what you've done so far? Okay.
Seeing that I'm still what you call early stage career, I think one of my accomplishments would be getting the PhD, right? That I didn't drop out of graduate school, that I made it through. And then the other thing will be, my post-doctoral studies. It was a short time, but I was able to publish 2 pivotal articles. And then I think I'm most proud of the fact that I am where I am today. Like you said, Dr. Grunman, that my path is non-typical, yes? And I like that because it enables me to bring diversity to the table, to say, hey, you're a clinical pharmacologist, but you don't have to go, in one particular direction, right? You can basically create your own path, right? That brings all of the learning that you have to bear, right? I tell people that, as I'm also an educator, so I teach in the pharmacy school program, and I tell them, I said, I'm an educator, but I'm a learning strategist. I basically teach my students how to think in a more broader perspective, right? Yes, you're a pharmacist, but realize that there's more to life than pharmacy school. And I think bringing in all of the experiences I got through grad school just gives me a different perspective. And this is the feedback that I get from the students, that she's able to bring in her own experiences into the classroom. And I think that helps impact student learning, right? Because they're in school, it's just like, I need to get this degree. But hearing from somebody who has been through school, but who is also able to bring in, a rich, diverse layer of experience, helps them basically think about the fact that, okay, there are many things that I can do with this degree. Right? Just as with clinical pharmacology, there are so many things you can do with the degree. You don't have to be just in industry or, the FDA, right? Because those are the two key streams that many people think about. You can be a clinical pharmacologist and still be a medical writer, right? Let me just take another role in the industry. There are many things you can do with this degree, but I think it's the idea that you've gone through the training, right? The critical thinking, the ability to write, the ability to present your work, that is really pivotal to whatever role that you find yourself in.
Yeah, and that's obviously then also applying to adaptability later on, to be adaptable. And that kind of shapes your decision-making process later on, to be adaptable to new career paths that might emerge as you move along. So that's very useful information once again. So talking about there's more than pharmacy school, what are you doing when you are not dedicated, because you're obviously very passionate. I can tell that right away. What are you doing when you're not working, when you're not out there teaching, when you're not working in your field, to balance activities with work and your passion for the field? Okay,
so by way of physical, I am a soulful runner. I don't run to win marathons or anything, but I try to make sure that I make room for exercise and physical activity. And the other thing too that I do on a hobby level is, interestingly, I cook a lot, right? And I tell people, I said, the cooking part of it, I think it stems from my medicinal chemistry experience. Because the idea of a medicinal chemistry is you take two reactants and you make a product, right? It's the same thing that happens in the kitchen. You bring all of these ingredients, which are your reactants, you mix them. Cooking, baking, all of those are chemical processes, right? And then you have a product. So yes, I'm nerdy like that. I still make use of my scientific principles in the kitchen. Yes, so that's, if you talk about coping mechanisms and things that make you happy, or things that you can really devote time. I am a cooking enthusiast. Like, I think if you come to my library, in addition to seeing my scientific books, you're going to see a plethora of cooking books that I haven't even gone through, but I'm just like collecting them, right, for when I want to make some fancy sauce.
So what's then your favorite cuisine? What's your favorite kind of...
I like foods from Thailand, so Asian foods, right? I like those quite a bit. And the next country will be India, right? I think that the Indian cuisine is rich, is varied. And can I mention that I'm from Nigeria, right, originally? And if you know anything about Nigerian cuisine, is that we have the best rice. We make the best rice in the world, I would say. But yeah, so I basically call myself a cuisine mixologist, right? Mixologist, like I try things from different parts of the world. And this clinical pharmacology is one field that I think you find a lot of people from different parts of the world. So I get to have get authentic feedback, right? Because if I make something from a person's country, I may bring it to work and say, can you try this? Did I get it? And many times they're like, oh, wow, we can't even tell that it was made by somebody who is not from this country. So yes, I do get feedback, which is another thing that we need, right? As scientists, to be able to get feedback on our work. So I get feedback on my hobbies, as it were.
So this was, I think, really a very good word of wisdom to take with us, because as scientists we want that feedback. We need that feedback, actually, not only within our own profession but also from other professions and from the public. And when it comes to cooking, we all know where to go in the future. Dr. Iwuchukwu, thank you very much for this interview and for taking the time today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Groneman.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.